Miami, 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 Miami. It feels like Miami.
Welcome to the Heat Beat podcast. Once again, covering the NBA Finals. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas. And with me today, maiden journey on our program. You've seen him all over Heat media sphere. You've seen him you see Spo loving him in the press conferences. You see him holding people accountable, unlike Alex Toledo. You've seen him on Hangover Time on Live on the Floor. Brady Hawk of 5 Reasons Sports and 5 on the Floor. Welcome to the show, man.
Appreciate you having me on. You said it. I've been through a couple of these, so I don't think we've done one of these yet.
We haven't, and it's, what better time, Brady, than to cover the NBA Finals? One that we were saying before. I still can't believe we're here.
No, I can't believe it either. We were just talking about it. I was like, me and Alex were talking about after the play-in game. We're like, we just want to cover one playoff series, so we might get 2 games in us in this Milwaukee series. If everybody's saying it's going to be a sweep. And here we are about to cover the NBA Finals. Like, none of this makes sense. Everybody's saying that, but man, like, this is literally just being able to live the kind of the bubble, but like in a real world sense. Like, this is literally just reliving the bubble, but just with a bunch of fans.
And reliving the bubble when they were also a low seed. They were the 5 seed in the bubble,
right.
Partly because they totally gave up a game at the end against Indiana because it didn't matter. 4-5, in the bubble didn't matter. But man, we're here. Chad is saying that I skipped a rent payment to get Brady in here. Excuse you people, a mortgage payment. I'm an adult, okay? How about that, chat? They're all happy to see you. Brady, before we get into Heat Nuggets, so we're going to preview the offensive side of the ball for Miami and how the Heat are going to attack Denver on offense. I want to go through the last 2 games of this series and really how we got here. Brady, I was talking to Rohan Nancardi of Sports Illustrated and Ryan Cortez of Meadowlark, along with Alf, and we were having a little group chat. And I asked him, I go, is this the biggest non-final game outside of Game 6 at Boston? So this is referring to Game 6 in Miami that they lost. And I asked again the question for Game 7, and they're like, yeah, and nothing comes close because you have the weight of history bearing down on you where if they lose this series after being up 3-0, it does undo every single ounce of goodwill that you had brought in this magical run. Brady, you're there. You're in the building in Game 6. Derek White's shot goes in. You are like, do you even know that it counts? What's going on? What's happening in Media Row? So,
for full transparency, me and Alex have our kind of our own little table behind the basket up at the top of the 100 level. We're just in this weird spot. I'm behind the basket where it happens. And to be honest with you, I see Marcus Smart's shot go up and I see it kind of rattle out. And I thought the Heat won. I literally have a video on my phone of the play where I zoom out to like show the crowd because I literally did not see the tip in when it first happened. And then all of a sudden everybody stopped and I'm like, so was there a foul on the floor? What's going on here? And then they showed it on the Jumbotron and I'm like, it was just kind of just stunned. Like it was pretty much just everybody was just shocked. And that's why the topic for the next 48 hours was how do you recover from this, like mentally? And the one thing I come back to is like, as you talk about kind of the big games and everything, I haven't seen a group, and I'm not even going to say a group as a whole. I'm going to focus on the role players because usually role players are the guys that can be up and down. I've never seen a more mentally stable group of role players just in my time watching basketball. I just haven't. Like just watching the way that they come in and the confidence that they have, the swagger they come in as an 8 seed with, the when they walk around in general, like they don't feel like they are role players. Even Jimmy last night, look at when he got asked about his role players, he said they're not role players, they're my teammates. Like this is literally what he was talking about. And it's to your point about these big games, it really was. And the other thing about it was, I don't know if you saw the clip of Spo in the locker room last night where he was talking about this is something that me and UD have never done. We've never won a Game 7 on the road. So to talk about a big game like this,
so true.
It's as big as possible when you just talk about a game of just this magnitude. It's an insane thing to do because as much as we talk about that Game 6, like this is like the confidence is back in Boston. They feel like they have the game kind of the series back under control, and then you see what happens. And I literally said, and this is the one I said he'd 7 before the series, but before the game 7, I said this is probably going to go one of two ways in my mind. Either Boston blows the doors off Miami, or Jimmy Butler kind of has total control over the game and Miami wins. Neither really happened.
Neither happened.
I was like, I don't see an in between. It was literally in between because it was mostly Miami blowing the doors off, and it wasn't Jimmy Butler. So we can't. This whole theme of this season is you cannot predict anything.
I want to bring in Christian Hernandez, who listen, full disclosure, I was supposed to send him the link. I forgot. I was preparing for Brady. Chris, what's up, man?
I don't blame you for being distracted. It's cool.
Listen, I was distracted because we're talking about just really before we kind of get into the finals, just really soaking in the moment of what they accomplished coming in, because truly, like Brady and I were saying, we can't believe that we're in this position, that Derek White was in, all that stuff. And then to come out in game 7 and Brady, to your point about the swagger, like it's not just that, it's Caleb Martin like against Milwaukee doing the face thing to the crowd. It's Duncan Robinson cupping his hand to his ear to the quiet Celtic crowd, the most quiet I've ever heard TD Garden. And I watched game 6, what LeBron did to them. That place, everybody was saying pregame, this is the loudest I've ever heard this building. Everybody who was there was on record of being like, this is crazy. And they went in there and they silenced that crowd. And I want to credit a lot of the media right now. Nobody's making the Tatum ankle excuse or anything because, and honestly, like that's an unfortunate thing to happen to Boston. Jimmy Butler, Brady, I'm sure you know, he is not playing healthy.
He doesn't appear to be.
I mean, like he and Bam were struggling with injuries throughout these playoffs, and like nobody's 100%.
For sure. I mean, we don't know what it is, and we'll never know if he really is hurt or not because he won't say, the team won't say, people around him will never say. So we will never know anything, especially him, because he's going to keep everything to himself.
He does not feign weakness.
He's the guy that's going to go on the podium and say he's not going to give the failure speech. Like he is literally going to put everything on himself. So yeah, we don't know. And I thought ideally before this all happened, I mean, being in this situation, I don't really even care to talk about it, but the fact that they could have had extra days of rest, I thought was going to be important heading into a finals. Then they get put in this situation where everybody loses all hope, and then they're in here anyway. Now I guess you can make the case that a team like Denver, before I'm not looking ahead here for the future segment, but the fact that they have this amount of rest could maybe not be as positive as you may think. Like it's sitting home all this time. Miami's a little bit of a rhythm. I just thought for Jimmy specifically, he needed a little bit of rest to kind of find a rhythm. Kind of get that whatever it is the problem is right, but who knows? There was not his best 4-game stretch. I thought like that. All of those games, I did not think he played his best basketball. Part of it we could sit here and say was possible injury, but look, we have to give credit to Boston because I thought they completely flattened him out. Like I thought they found counters to him that we just haven't seen in the playoffs in recent times. So they deserve a lot of credit. And then that's where we get it, I guess, to Denver, because I don't think we're going to see a team like that where they have the exact counters that Boston had.
Brian Goins in chat said that Ethan reported that Jimmy is not dealing with anything new or severe. So I guess that's good news. Christian, before we transition into finals preview, any closing thoughts on this mystic run that was equal parts magical, disastrous, and everything in between, as they are on the cusp of sweeping the team that everyone predicted preseason was going to make the finals, to at the brink of history, to the point that I tweeted out before that game. I said sometimes the weight of history wears heavier than the crown. Any parting thoughts on what the fuck happened before we get into the finals preview?
Yeah, I mean, I was on hangover time last night. I don't even know what the hell I said because I was still in a state of shock, honestly. I mean, I guess I would say that the series against the Celtics really kind of felt like a microcosm of this whole season. Just in terms of it being a fucking roller coaster and your emotions, going wildly from one direction to the next. We went from being literally probably the ultimate form of cocky Heat fan after game 3 to, I mean, you can ask Leslie the next time you see her, Gianni. I was not in a good mood yesterday.
I was lost at sea.
We started that game. I didn't say a word the
I didn't either.
entire first half. There were points that Leslie literally went to me and she's like, "What's wrong with you? Are you even enjoying this? Like, your team's up." I'm like, I am not ready to have any kind of emotion yet. Like, and it was, I think that speaks to how impactful as a fan Game 6 was. You know, Brady said it real well. He and everyone else thought it was over. We all thought it was over. I mean, I was watching it at a bar in Boston, and you know, my initial reaction was I put my arms up, but I never celebrated because I think in my subconscious knew that they got that in before the buzzer. And then you see that replay. I walked out of the bar, and then 8 seconds later, when everyone else processes it, everybody's going crazy. You know, it was the ultimate ride of emotion. I don't even know how analytical I can get about this series because, like, and then look what happens in Game 7. And honestly, I feel for Leslie, and because she thinks that it was like the ultimate letdown watching Jason Tatum turn his ankle on the first play of the game in Game 7. You don't know what that game looks like if that doesn't happen. A bit maybe fortuitous for the Heat. I don't know. Like, you know, were they always going to miss all those threes and really have no answer for not having, you know, any real offense outside of hitting the 3-point shot? I don't know. Like, does Tatum become a difference maker if he's healthy? Who knows? But at the end of the day, thank God the Heat went up 3-0 because they had that leniency to really have 3 really borderline awful games given the context from your 2 big stars, and then they show up just in time.
So,
like,
quick point before we move on. Credit to Spo for switching everything. That was really what got Boston's offense in the mud. Bam with one of, I think, his best defensive performances in the playoffs I've ever seen. He was everywhere, guarding multiple guys in possessions. Miami zone, obviously a weapon for them all season, all postseason.
Oh, Gianni, before I miss this, because I do want to ask Brady this, because I feel like I already asked you this. Brady, what were your thoughts on Zeller getting minutes in Game 6 over Highsmith?
I mean, the box score, I think, answered that for you. When you see 2 minutes -7, like that was a Dwayne Dedman
That's
level
what we were
performance.
saying.
That was like, which Miami still needs to get him a ring. Obviously, that's what this is all for. But no, I don't understand that at all.
Me.
I just didn't understand it, to be honest. If you're going to put a guy in to play 2 to 4 minutes in a stretch, which is one of the hardest roles in basketball, but if you're going to do it in this matchup, let it be a guy that's going to go up there and mess things up defensively on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I thought that was the answer all along. It felt like social media and the Heat fan base thought that was the answer all along.
We've been screaming Highsmith at the 5.
This was like the one thing I felt like there was unity across the entire fan base.
We finally agreed on something, and it was Haywood Highsmith.
It's Spo waits till Game 7 in his back pocket to pull that out. And if they're putting Haywood Highsmith in, they're playing zone almost always. So then we see the zone roll out around the same time again that second quarter. And to your point, that was the big thing in that game. You mentioned Bam having an all-time kind of defensive game. I thought that was outstanding. You mentioned it, but Spo defensive game. I thought he came out and coached circles around them. The way he came out with the soft switching to start, the fact that you mentioned the Tatum rolling his ankle. Like, yeah, we don't know. We can't really totally like think about that because Miami's never getting the benefit of the doubt with their injuries in the past in big games. So we're not giving other teams the benefit of the doubt either.
That's how this goes. It's a survival game as much as it is a basketball tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But the defensive stuff they were able to do with Tatum standing in the corner, they flattened them out. They made them kind of play, make passes inside on mismatches, and they got turnovers, and everything kind of ran from there. So I just thought to kind of put a bow on the Boston thing, I just felt like there was, you mentioned it, it literally felt like a summary of their entire Heat season. I said it the morning of game 7, where I said to myself, it literally, whatever happens tonight, this perfectly summarizes everything. Either a team that got so hot just chokes and loses 4 straight, which we probably could have seen coming from what we watched this season, or a team trolls around, loses 3 straight, goes into a game 7 in Boston where nobody's giving them a chance, and they go out and win. So like
off
either
their
scenario
role players.
Exactly.
No, I'm glad Brady used the specific word, trolled their way through this season, because that's what it's fucking felt like.
Jimmy Butler's trolled his way to a finals. I said that last night on our post-game show. I really believe that. Just if go from start by media day and watch what he did and walked in with, then roll into the season and watch what he did throughout the season, and then just go through the playoff logs. It's literally just, we can talk about the stuff off the floor as a troll. He is an on-court troll.
My goat. To really put a bow on it, I was so in distress yesterday. I went paddleboarding, and I went into the middle of Key Biscayne by the mangroves where there's nobody there. I just sat in the water and looked at the horizon for an hour. Swear to God, I just needed to get away from my phone, and I just sat there.
A great scene for the movie,
dude. I literally sat on the board and I just stared at the horizon. I head empty, no thoughts, and then I was like, "Oh, time to go. Gotta go cover the game." And I paddled my way to shore, and I came and I didn't say a word pretty much from the whole drive home. Up until Highsmith got the steal and dunk, I yelled "fuck yeah" as I clapped, and I don't think I said another word for another hour. But moving to the NBA Finals and Miami's offense, Brady, start with you, man. So I've watched a lot of Denver-Miami film, which is really funny because in their most recent matchup, Bouye played, Highsmith played, and Orlando Robinson played, and they were all on the floor at the same time. Yep. Denver started people that I forgot existed. I forgot Ish Smith is a Denver Nugget.
Oh, God.
And he played in that game. Their most recent game, Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray did not play.
But he doesn't play, right?
He
doesn't play, right?
Who?
Ish Smith.
No. Well, he did for them earlier in the season, but not now.
I still have nightmares from that.
I forgot Brady. I forgot DeAndre Jordan was a Denver Nugget. And I forgot Thomas Bryant was a Denver Nugget, who I heard today in practice is replicating Bam. So I don't know. Whatever that means. Yeah, I think Adam Mares said it on his podcast today. So looking back to their December matchup, more of the guys played. This was in Denver. Jimmy played, Tyler played, all that stuff. We'll get into Tyler's potential impact later, but Brady, we got to start with the Aaron Gordon, Jimmy Butler matchup because a lot of things have been said about Gordon doing a good job on Jimmy. He's the kind of big wing that does slow him down. We know the matchup numbers. They've been pretty public on Twitter. But to me, I think one of the key battlegrounds is how is Denver going to defend Jimmy with their guards? Because what Miami does when they put Gordon on him is bring up Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson, Kyle Lowry to screen for Jimmy. And like Bones Highland, who is also not a Denver Nugget anymore, would really show hard on the pick and roll. Sometimes they'd use Jimmy as a handoff man for Duncan and then slip to the basket because they'll send two at Duncan and they'll get Jimmy moving that way. Brady, if I'm Miami, I think you see that Bruce Brown and KCP and all those and Murray cannot guard Jimmy. And I think you have to mismatch hunt as often and as hard as you can.
The question is, I guess, are they going to be willing to give up those switches? I feel like that's the original key we're going to see in game one. If they're not, you mentioned kind of some of the ways that they've gone about it. Number one, I think in terms of they can do the guard screening, but something they've been able to give up is the off-ball screening. We've seen that a ton where they've been able to kind of off-ball screen and they'll give up a Jamal Murray switch on Jimmy. And then all of a sudden now Jamal Murray's playing rim protector, or they can work it to Jimmy and he can play in the mid to low post. So there's that element that's always going to be there. That it feels like that's always their fallback plan when there's nothing else working. You mentioned the biggest thing I thought you mentioned is something I put on Twitter today is I feel like there's one element to the offense that we haven't seen a lot that is going to be utilized more than anything, and it's Jimmy Butler as a roller. I think there's an opening there in the series. I think it comes down to they're going to work everything through a lot of the time through their shooters and with either it's Max, if it's Tyler returning, if it's Duncan, probably specifically is probably the smoothest one to run it with.
Yeah.
If you can get two on the ball with a shooter, I think that opens up everything. And it starts with, I know you mentioned Jimmy, it starts with Bam. If Bam, and I know we'll get to him, but the 4-on-3s with him is what's going to open up everything originally. Jimmy, you may not get as many 4-on-3s possibly because he's going to be slipping and it's going to be it's more so to let him operate around the rim with the lack of rim protection that Denver has and kind of make quicker decisions and not have to kind of ISO and Aaron Gordon or kind of have to fall in love with the pull-up every single time. I just think it's a different way to get him new looks. So I think that's going to be an interesting wrinkle that they can mix in. But there's a lot of things I feel like they can do with it. And the one thing, and I know this is another thing we're probably going to get into a ton with this matchup, You have to manipulate Jokic and pick and roll, as we know. Like, that is the number one thing that you have to get to. You have to get him moving. You cannot let him be stationary, and you have to let him just kind of, for one, get some energy out. Like, make him work defensively in general to try to tire him out. But two, it's one of your best looks offensively. So I think there's certain things you can get to. Let's go back to the Boston series for 1 second. I thought the downfall of that series was literally going to be the Jimmy Butler Bam pick and roll. That was literally going to be the collapse of the Miami Heat's offense, because every single pick and roll was a switch. Bam wasn't doing much with the smaller defender on him. He was not going to post up or be effective. Right. And then Horford switching out was totally, or Rob Williams, was kind of just flattening out Jimmy. So now we fast forward to the NBA Finals, and I think it's the exact opposite. It's the Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo pick and roll can save their offense in the series, because there's certain things they can get to. You mentioned the Aaron Gordon thing. Make him work. Make him choose. If he has to start going under, Jimmy's going to be kind of fall in love with the pull-up. If they can find different things, empty corner, I think, is going to be a big kind of reliable asset they can go to. Just kind of go to that Jimmy Bam empty corner, see if Jimmy can get to that baseline a little bit, see if Jokic is going to play deep drop, which I don't expect. He's going to play closer to the screen. And then now Jimmy can make those pocket passes and work 4-on-3s from there. So there's so many different elements to it. They have more versatility than I remember literally talking throughout the playoff run last year. I don't remember them having as much versatility, just because, and I don't even mean to say it, but the swap for Caleb Martin, PJ Tucker, really just gives them so much more offensive versatility.
A healthy Caleb Martin, because I don't think people remember the Achilles injury last season stunted his athleticism to the point that he was not making plays above the rim. That he looks springy and his pre-injury self again. And
his shot is different than obviously last season.
It's not a pretty shot, but
it's not. I don't care. It works.
Goes in. It's pretty efficient. I'll tell you that much.
It has like a little. It still has like mechanical problems.
It's
it looks
like
like
a hitch to
it. It is a hitch. That's the word.
Yeah, it's a line drive too, but he hits that thing at a pretty good clip.
And he doesn't get blocked, which is crazy.
Yeah,
because it looks a little flat. But
if he has that foot on the line, though, let me just tell you, that's a bucket right there. That's all I'll say.
Did you see his quote? He's like, "I must be shooting 100% with my foot on the line." I was like, Caleb, if you only knew what Twitter was saying about foot on the line, Caleb.
That's Michael Jordan.
Seriously, bro. Like, dude, if they're down 1 point and they need a basket, the play has to be a toe on the line Caleb jumper. It's got to be automatic.
My favorite part about it is how he looks down at his feet and then he still has his foot on the line. That's my favorite part about it. Like, he literally does it all the time. He'll look down and I'm like, okay, this one's gonna be a 3, and then all of a sudden I see the ref putting the two fingers up. So I don't know, but I know you'll get into this too, but he's another guy in I literally said this, I think starting in the second round, I said, I feel like every series we could say Caleb Martin's the X factor. We could say that last season. We no longer could say that. He's up. He is literally graduated from the X factor.
Big 3, baby.
Possibly. But he's not an X factor anymore. And if you have to say every single series, we said it in the Bucks, the Knicks, the Celtics, and now the Nuggets, he's not an X factor in every series. He's just who he is. So he's going to be big in this series, though.
Christian, I actually think one of the pillars of their offense that I think is going to be important, and Caleb did not play well in the game in Miami against Denver. Missed a lot of his shots. Did not look like the Caleb Martin we're seeing today, baby. But I do think something that they can get going is Caleb being a screener for Jimmy, and whoever doesn't have Aaron Gordon gets to run offense, with then Bam. So you can kind of have Bam second. You run the initial screen, Caleb or Jimmy screening for each other. If they force the switch, the other guy, whoever, you can kind of move Aaron Gordon off of your side, which they did, Brady. You kind of mentioned it. They'll like. There was a play that I tweeted where Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler run a pick and roll, but it's mainly to get the Aaron Gordon switch onto Lowry to then kind of flip the ball to Bam, and then Tyler curls off the corner, and they run an empty corner pick and roll, and it's Jokic in space, and he can't stay in front of Bam. And I think that has been clear in every matchup that they've had. And then what they do is Jimmy cuts middle, so now Jamal Murray is forced to be the low man, and he's too small, and that's an easy dump pass to Jimmy anyway, or an offensive rebound with smaller guys around him. So I actually think, Christian, Miami's going to have a very easy time scoring in this series, which is funny to say about a team that I think we lamented their offense all year. But with the way that at the level that they've been playing and with the amount of options that they have, given that Denver's help is not very potent. They don't have a lot of big. It's funny because Jokic is big and Aaron Gordon's big, but Jamal Murray is not that good a help defender. You know, Michael Porter is a much improved on-ball defender. I still think he lacks some off-ball stuff that I think we'll see a lot of this series. You know, Bruce Brown, smaller guy. I actually think that Miami's going to be it's going to be a nice series for them to score, which is kind of funny to say.
Yeah. I mean, I think what makes Denver tough is, you know, you've got most of the guys on the court that play for Denver are either like sturdy defenders or have length. You know, apart from Jamal Murray, but I would argue that Jamal Murray has a pretty good defensive IQ for somebody his size. You know, he still makes plays defensively. Sure, he can get picked on, you know, especially if you get the right matchup. And I feel like the Heat should be looking at going after him, especially early on, to see if they can get something going. But I mean, you guys, this series revolves around Jokic. You know, let's not sugarcoat it. And you guys brought up a great point. You know, I feel like the best chance you do have at beating Denver is to wear him down, you know, and I'm not going to lie, watching that Lakers series, I was super impressed by his conditioning. He's got much better conditioning than honestly I gave him credit for.
Do you not remember that Fajillion overtime game against Portland? They had like what was it, 5 overtimes in a playoff game? Where Jokic was somehow not the most tired person on the floor. It was David Lillard.
This was before.
Yeah, this was a couple years ago.
No, I don't remember that specific game, but yeah, I mean, I've definitely grown a deeper appreciation for the level of endurance that he really has. So I think that's a huge factor too. So honestly, I want to kick it back to you guys because you guys know the X's and O's a lot better than I do. What are your thoughts on Kevin Love in this series? Because I think that is you guys, if you want to get Jokic in the pick and roll, then I think you really want to have Bam as your biggest player out there, which kind of forces Denver's hand a little bit, especially if you're going to seek out, Jimmy Bam, Duncan Bam, PNRs. So where do you guys think, Kevin Love fits in this series?
Brady, I'll let you go first. I'm really interested to see what you think.
So I know this is the offensive episode, but I think it's more so what they can do defensively with Kevin Love, and that's also the different things. When I talk about lineup and kind of scheme versatility, I think there's ways, and not to throw off to the next topic for the next one, but throwing a little bit of Kevin Love at Jokic and let Bam be the helper. Like, that's some things that they can mix in, and the question becomes can they make him pay offensively? Because there's things that they did against Boston where the question was, can he make Marcus Smart pay, or whatever the small defender they put on him, because they were just kind of going with smaller lineups.
The answer was
this
no.
Is not and this is not a smaller lineup. So are you going to be able to find the same type of openings? I'm not sure. Like, I do think there's a role for Kevin Love definitely in this series. I still think he could be a little bit of backup 5, especially because Aaron Gordon essentially is their backup 5, if I'm not mistaken. It's a little bit of Jeff Green and Aaron Gordon. I think they classify Aaron Gordon as the 5. So, yeah, you can do that. The question is, I think Miami could get greedy eventually, at least, and say, hey, Haywood Highsmith's our backup 5.
I mean, dude, you got Aaron Gordon as a 5. I don't see why you can't throw out Haywood out there.
100%.
Switch everything.
Yeah. And that's actually a lineup that you can sink into your zone with when Jokic is off the floor. Not to get too much into their defense stuff, but and that allows you to pivot offense. You could play a lot of Duncan Robinson in those lineups. You could just have him and Lowry. He and Lowry have been fantastic together in the postseason. I think that their synergy off Duncan's cuts and just Duncan's has very good hands. Not to bring up the H word, but he reminds me of Hassan Whiteside. Very good hands. Very
He looks
steady.
like him too with that block on Brown.
Brady,
Dude.
Was that his first block of the season? I saw that on Twitter.
Yes, it was.
Is that true?
It was.
That's so funny.
I saw the same thing, and there's two things he doesn't do. It's block or offensive rebound. I saw neither. He always has zeros on his seasons with those two stats. The fact that it came in a Game 7 in Boston is hilarious.
Against Jaylen Brown, one of the most athletic wings in the league.
What is more real, playoff Jimmy or playoff Duncan?
Playoff Duncan's legit because he turns into a defender all of a sudden. I have not watched many possessions where I felt like he hasn't held his own for multiple possessions in a
He
row. Like,
gets
he's done a decent job.
He does not get the benefit of calls because why would he? Because he's Duncan Robinson.
Mhm.
But I think they get him for some ticky tacks that I don't think he deserved. And
He's handsy though. He's handsy
he's
sometimes.
handsy. He defends with his hands. I think he's gotten better at that. But he does get pushed off with the off arm. But because he's so skinny, I think players like Tatum was good at this, disguising it as body contact. But it was really like a little chicken wing to get Duncan off. It was pretty funny. But man, Brady, I honestly don't think it's a Kevin Love series. And I think for everything that you kind of outlined, and I think because when they go small, I think we might see him as backup 5 a little bit. I think they may try that for stints because I don't think Spo is super comfortable with Highsmith playing a lot of minutes. I think him at the 5 is interesting. They'll try it and they'll see. I just worry about, again, Love surviving and pick and roll against Jamal Murray. But on offense, they, against Gordon, Gordon's going to be able to, they're going to be able to switch stuff. And so I don't think they'll get as much on pick and pop kind of situations. And I don't know if they'll have enough off ball. I mean, maybe they can force a switch, get Gordon out of the play if you run kind of a handoff or they'll send 2 at the ball, kind of like what we talked about Jimmy. But, offensively, I imagine Zeller playing as a backup 5 probably more. I know that's kind of taboo at this point. I just think Spo's a creature of habit, and he's going to kind of stick to what he knows. I think they'll come out. I guess, by the way, who do you think's starting? Do you think they're just going to start the Caleb Martin starting lineup?
Yeah, I do. I think at this point you have to put your best 5 players on the floor to start. And I've had this conversation before, and I think it's coming to fruition now. The thing where Caleb Martin plays better off the bench, I just don't believe is true. I just think he's just good.
No, yeah, I think we've moved past that. We've graduated.
We have.
Kenny
and
Spence
the other
was
thing
right.
To your point about the back of 5 stuff, the other question is, so they've mirrored minutes with certain guys throughout the run, but obviously they faced a lot of wings. How are they going to mirror rotations if are they just going to keep Bam and Jokic on the floor at the same time? Because they do things, obviously, with Bam coming out earlier than Jimmy. Jimmy plays the entire first quarter. I'd have to look into it, but I don't really remember Jokic's minutes distribution. I don't know if he plays the whole first quarter like Jimmy or if he comes out early. But that's another thing to monitor because I wonder if Spo adjusts early in the series to say we're just going to keep him on the floor so then we can do the Highsmith thing or even the Love thing to match and go into the zone and stuff. So it's weird because – look, once again, I don't mean to go into defense, but the zone, you cannot go into zone when Jokic is on the floor. You just can't. So you have to find ways to mirror rotations in a way.
Christian, I think being on the road for these 2 games is actually a disguised benefit because I think the pressure's off you a little bit and they can experiment with a few things without having to lose a home game doing so, especially in that game 1. So I think Brady's right that is going to be an interesting thing to see. I imagine that Spo's going to try to match Jokic's rest pattern with Bam. It just makes sense, and I think they may pivot to hey, when Jokic is on and Bam is off, they may try to bludgeon them offensively with as much shooting as possible and be we're going to put you in so many handoffs and so many pick and rolls that you're not going to know what hit you. And I think that if
that's the case for Love, then he's all of a sudden he's the hub.
Yeah.
And the handoff hub and forced him to come out.
And I think that if you can get free throws out of those things, because what we kind of saw in the Celtics series was, Duncan is still a fire drill off a screen. And he's a great mover. And I don't think that Denver's guys, other than KCP, do a particularly great job of getting over screens. I think that they were caught pretty regularly. When I was watching, again, regular season film is regular season film. But, they've been a different defensive team in the playoffs, of course. But, I think KCP's kind of proven that he's a very good screen navigator. And if they can get 2 on the ball and they can get a guy going downhill, they can collapse defenses pretty easy. And I think you saw Jimmy do that regularly in the regular season. And if you get free throws, you can set your defense. You can have Gabe Vincent get his steps in, as we know Spo loves to make him do. You can full court press and harass, and they love doing all that stuff. So I'm Christian. I'm pretty interested in what they can do on offense when Bam sits and they just go all in on shooting.
Definitely. Especially, and especially when Jokic sits, those are going to be super crucial minutes because, and I guess I'm going back to the defensive side a little bit here, but the real problem with them is that they got 4 guys that are basically playing like snipers right now at any one moment on the court. You're basically looking at, you got Aaron Gordon, who's an okay shooter. You're going to have Bruce Brown minutes, again, an okay shooter. And those are the guys that you're going to really want to try to funnel a lot of the action to, because, it's all the other guys that were just absolutely destroying the Lakers. You give Jokic a little bit too much attention, and Murray starts getting loose, and you start giving Murray a little too much attention, they start kicking it out, and you got Porter and Caldwell Pope that are just there, and they're, Caldwell Pope especially is a veteran. He's a well-rounded player. He's a champion. We literally faced him in the finals a few years ago. And Michael Porter Jr., he's someone that I'm interested to see if the Heat attack him, because I don't think he's the the strongest guy mentally. He's young still. He's definitely shown times that he can get a little fluttered, and he is a black hole too. So he's a guy that I think the Heat might try to funnel a lot into him and AG and see if you can live with that. I think the Heat are going to be super active defensively. I think they're going to be trying everything in their power to get the ball out of Jokic and Murray's hands. But then you just got to wonder, are you going to get exhausted? Are you going to, run yourself out, especially in the altitude? I'm super interested. Game 1's going to be fascinating for me. I think it's the perfect opportunity for Spo to try some shit. Nobody's expecting you to win that game. So
for series, we've said that, and they get game 1 too.
I know, right? They've literally won every single game once, but I'm going to keep saying that they don't need
Didn't
game 1.
Didn't they do that last playoff run too? Didn't they win every game 1?
Well, it was different because they were at home to me.
That's very true.
They're going into these.
I believe in the bubble as well, right? They won every game 1 in the bubble too.
Yeah.
Except the finals. The finals. That's because Gogi and Bam went down. Quick note on Jokic in the playoffs. Jokic on +9 net rating. Jokic off +3 net rating. So they're still good. Important to note, the defense with Jokic off is at 104. The defense with Jokic on is at almost 115. So that is actually, the offense goes the other way. 107, almost 108, pretty bad with Jokic off, and 124 with Jokic.
Dude, that's the thing. This guy has got 50.
That's fucking crazy, dude.
Bro, 54, 48, 78 shooting splits on an average triple-double. This guy is just a walking nightmare.
They're shooting 39% from 3 in minutes that Jokic plays. It's absolutely insane. 55 from 2.
The Heat have to really hope, because especially with the way that he was playing against the Lakers, there was not much you could do about it. If Jamal Murray is fucking cooking from mid-range, you're in deep fucking trouble.
I think going at him is important.
I agree.
As much as Jokic. I think going at Murray, like the Lakers were very aggressive in putting Murray in pick and rolls, and they have shaky weak points. Brady, it's a weird final series because you go from a team like Milwaukee and Boston, who it's like there are very few, if any, weak points to attack. Like Derek White is a weak point on Boston's defense, and you saw that wasn't always such a weak point for their defense. And against Milwaukee, Drew Holiday is like, okay, well, I guess we're going at Drew Holiday, which is like, what the fuck? Denver is the opposite. They have a lot of it's like a pick'em of, well, where do we want to go now? On offense. And it's just funny because what's waiting on you at the other end is 124 offensive rating in 583 minutes.
And you mentioned the Milwaukee series, and that's why I think it's important is not only do you have the ability to hunt certain guys, but we also have to talk about the fact, for one, these are the 2 best 3-point shooting teams in the playoffs. And the fact that you have to be able to shoot well, it's not. You have to be able to shoot well to make it to this point in the season. But the pull-up shooting, we think back to that season that we want to forget about, the Milwaukee series where they got swept. We said before that series, the whole talk was that you're going to have the pull-up shots, you're going to have the mid-range pull-ups, you just have to hit them. Goran, none. Tyler did not hit them, and they got swept. That's just what happens when you have an opening in a defense and you can't take advantage of it. There's not much else you can go to. You look at the Milwaukee series this year in the first round. Pull-up shooting, it doesn't even matter that Drew Holiday was hedging those screens and kind of trailing Jimmy Butler or whoever. they were just hitting pull-up shots. And then now we get to a point where there's no Drew Holiday. The guy that's in the deep drop is not Brook Lopez. So this is something that they're familiar with, that the shots they feel comfortable with. And that's why I think it's a good thing in terms of you want your best player to be comfortable. And, we talk about Jokic is always going to be comfortable, it feels like. But this feels like a series, other than the altitude we could talk about, but specifically with matchups, like Jimmy's going to be comfortable. There's a lack of rim protection. The pull-up shots are going to be there. I guess they can throw certain matchups on him to flatten him out, but it's going to be hard. Like as much as you say Aaron Gordon, like I just still feel like, to your point, they have other outlets they can get to. So the offense, I'm not worried about. It's more so the other side of the floor where they have to be really creative, and Spo has to really put on just a full masterclass, it feels like. But offensively, there's certain things
which he can do.
He can. And then the other thing about the offense, I will say, we talked about Caleb Martin before and kind of different things that Denver is going to do. We talk about the guy you're going to help off of for Miami. You're going to help off of Aaron Gordon types you were mentioning and stuff like that, or Bruce Brown types. Miami is Caleb Martin's still going to be helped off of. Like, that is still where they're going to be. They're going to have Caleb Martin in the corner at times. Aaron Gordon's probably going to be on him at times, I think. As much as you say Aaron Gordon on Jimmy, I see Aaron Gordon on Caleb where they have Aaron Gordon just hedging down and saying, if Jimmy gets to the basket, Aaron Gordon's going to send over for a double on Jimmy around the rim. That's going to be their way of protecting the rim in a way. Caleb Martin's going to have the same shots. And I'll tell you what, I feel comfortable, as everybody feels comfortable with him taking those shots and making those reads, because I just haven't seen a role player react and make decisions in a long time like Caleb Martin. He is just so decisive.
I haven't really seen it since Jimmy on the Bulls or Kawhi on the Spurs. I don't know if that's hyperbolistic or not, but it's just maybe a little bit. Maybe I'm deep in the sauce. I don't know.
There were points in Game 7 which shocked me.
This man is hitting turnarounds.
No. Beyond the Kobe shots, let's just ignore the Kobe shots for a second.
What?
Let's just talk about gravity. There were times in Game 7 that Caleb and Duncan were on the same side of the court running an action, and two guys went with Caleb and left Duncan alone. That is a level of respect that Caleb Martin has never seen before. So, yeah, it's going to be super interesting. Is Denver going to follow suit what Boston did, or are they going to roll the dice and see if Caleb can do it again?
And by the way, they were running those actions you're mentioning. That's usually Caleb setting a pin down for Duncan. They got to a point in the Boston series where Duncan was setting pin downs for Caleb. And then that's what was opening up the Duncan back cuts. And that was what was opening up Caleb kind of reacting. And as much, by the way, the other important thing about this series, I think, is we talk about Denver and their passing ability and their movement. It's almost like the battle of the motion offense. Who can be more comfortable in their motion offense and their movement in general? And as much as we talk about Denver's cutting and you have to figure that stuff out, Denver has to figure out Miami's cutting, because they're in those matchups. And to your point earlier, man, I've never seen regular season film not matter to this extent. I look, not only
it's
there was
so
Jimmy,
useless, Brady.
Jimmy cooking DeAndre Jordan. I'm watching Bones Highland cook Miami. I'm watching an 8-man rotation in the regular season of a 3-man bench group that you mentioned with Boye Highsmith and Orlando Robinson. I'm like, okay, none of this matters.
The Lando minutes, bro.
But I by the way, when I was watching, I saw Orlando Robinson throw a sick post hook at Jokic. I was like, okay, Bam's gonna have some opportunities,
bro. Is it bad that I was watching that film and a part of me is like, man, I kind of wish I had Orlando. It's just a body.
That is bad. I just want to mention as well the fact that we've gone this far, and I've not mentioned Bam too much.
I was about to pivot to Bam because we got to talk about.
I was gonna say, because I honestly think this is his biggest opportunity in a series I think presented to him. I think he has a real opportunity to take over a series.
Unlike Boston, where Miami seemed hell bent on running offense from the mid post as Bam as a scorer in the regular season against Denver, they had Bam on the wing against Jokic because you want Jokic to quote unquote attempt to pressure the pass, and you can stretch him out. And for us I always compare him to Dirk on defense. I think he's a very neutral defender. I think he does his job. He keeps up pretty well. He eats a lot of space, which I think is important.
It's a good system.
Yeah, as a big man. But I think what Miami does is they make Bam a playmaker, similar to how the Warriors do with Draymond Green. So you stretch this guy out because he has to pressure the pass, and they'll run a Duncan Jimmy kind of rub action on the other corner, and Bam can hit those shots, or like we said, kind of they come for a handoff off the strong side corner. All of a sudden that corner is empty, and now you can get Bam slipping into space and beating him. So I think Bam is huge this series, and that I hope that he got all of those missed layups out of his system, because he has to be a finisher. I think the jump shot's going to be critical, because I do think the counter to Bam kind of beating Jokic is they're going to be like, okay, well, we're going to sink Jokic a little bit deeper if Jimmy's in the pick and roll, and we're going to let Jimmy be a pull-up three-point shooter. And Bam, you have to prove to us that you can pop and like on that short roll and hit that jumper and make that pass.
And he did that in the regular season games, to your point. Like, as much as I say stuff didn't matter, that was the stuff he was doing. Like, and that's why I think I mentioned the term 4-on-3. The 4-on-3s for Bam is going to be the tell of the entire series for me. Like, if Bam can make the plays, I'm not even saying as a scorer, because those are going to be important, and he's going to have to hit those jumpers eventually, and that's what's going to open everything up. But he cannot turn the ball over. He has to make quick decisions. The stuff that Denver likes to do and pull away from weak side, he has to be able to make those passes, which I trust that ability. But it's just about the decision-making thing, because obviously on this stage, at this point in the season, 4-on-3s it sounds like you have an advantage, but those are like opportunities that are not easy, especially as a big man. Like, this is literally two big men. They're of the best at that ability of just kind of putting a guy on a short roll and telling your five to just go make those playmaking plays. Like, that's a luxury. But they're going to need it. They're going to need it. They're going to need him to take advantage in the mid-range, to your point. They're going to need those elbow kind of jumpers and those type of shots. And you mentioned Duncan. I think it's so funny how we've come full circle on this. The fact of, we talked about the Duncan Bam.
I've never left, Brady.
we talked about it, and then we say
and Alf never left.
It hurt Bam all of a sudden. That now, because Bam was only looking for the handoff, and then now we've come full circle where Duncan kind of takes time off. Bam figures out his offensive game more and finds a little bit more aggression, finds the jumper, and we've come back, and it's like they've never left. Except the only difference is they've added more to their bag, because it's not a handoff pairing. It's just a two-man game. They know when he's kind of shading over to kind of top lock, back cut, it's a layup. Have we seen this many Duncan Robinson layups? And by the way, I feel like every time I see him doing a layup, it's a left-hand layup. Like, I feel like he's just showing off. Like, he's just showing that he has a bag now and that they can go to different things.
He's beating dudes off the dribble.
Yes. When he threw I don't even remember what game it was, but it was one of the home games that I was at, where I think it might have been game 3, where he did like the Jimmy shimmy move, where he just kind of double clutched it and got. I could not believe that was his best move I've ever seen him make. Like, that, when he's adding that stuff in. But look, they're going to need that two-man game in this series. They're going to need, if Duncan can hit some threes early in the series, and obviously that's an obvious statement to make, and now you're forcing, once again, Jokic to move around in the pick and roll or come higher up to the screen or lower or whatever. If you can move from around and manipulate him, it's still, no matter if it's Jimmy, Duncan, no matter what, it comes back to Bam. It comes back to Bam after the pocket pass to make plays. And if he can do it, it opens up their entire offense. So that's kind of why I think there's so much on his shoulders right now.
I mean, I love that you guys think that he's going to, be a huge part of the series, because so much of the rhetoric that I've seen on Twitter today is that, Jokic is going to punk him all series long. And, I mean, honestly, I don't know how Bam became such a punching bag. I guess because, the value
fan base
that
does
he
it.
brings. No, right. And I'm talking about the fan base.
Okay.
But I mean, like, I feel like he's not, for the level of player that he is, he's really not respected, like, to the degree that he should be, and I understand that a ton of his value comes from things that, whatever, aren't sexy, maybe don't show up in the box score, but like, the dude, like that first half in game 7, like, just to go back to it one last time, that first half only goes that way because of Bam's unbelievable defensive effort. Like, the amount of those misses around the rim that he influenced in that first half and really just stalled the Celtics offense. Like, he is a huge part of what the Heat do. And it's just wild to me that even still in the NBA Finals, he gets no respect.
None.
And what, second Finals in 3 years? 4 years? 4 years?
And really the first Finals. Yeah. And I think, Brady, I don't know if you've talked to him about this or have heard him say anything, but really his first finals, he didn't get to be an active participant. He got hurt. He went down. He came back late in the series, was not himself. He had a big second half in game 6, but that series and game was over. Jimmy was 100% on empty. They just, Goran just couldn't, they didn't have enough. This is kind of like his actual finals debut in a way where he's like, okay, I get a full final series to make an impact. It's funny because Tyler's probably going to come join. I want to finish this Bam conversation, get to Tyler. But yeah, I don't know if you've talked to him about that or heard anything.
No, I haven't, and it's an interesting point because this is essentially, he's had big Eastern Conference Finals too. Like many big Eastern Conference Finals, which is why the whole thing is funny to me. And you can be critical about him, but like it feels like if you're critical about him, it gets taken to another degree. Like there were points in that game 7, I did not think he played a very bad offensive game, like for pockets of that game 7 yesterday. He just did. You have to be able to take advantage of certain switches. And then if you kind of they wanted him to play into the post, he started playing into the post, and then now he's missing little bunnies and he's missing little hooks, and it hurts you. And if you do that, it's a problem. So you can mention that while also mentioning the stuff that he's literally a walking defensive coverage. You could put him out there. He's sitting there. You mentioned the soft switching. He played drop, which he's probably going to do some in this series. He's played in zone. He's played everything down the line where it's like you can be critical about the stuff he's done offensively, which now when there's an opening like this in this final series, there's probably more of an opening to be critical if he doesn't show up in that way, which is probably setting him up. But I don't know. I've seen him do the defensive stuff too often to just go overboard
Christian,
the way that I've seen so many times.
I recalled last night watching Bam struggle on offense, but doing everything on defense. Chris Bosh scored 0 points in a game 7 in the finals. And everybody in that locker room said CB fell on the sword on the grenade. I think it was Battier that said CB fell on the grenade for us. And they like sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes you use everything you have on defense and you do just enough on offense to get your team over the hump. Obviously, this is quite there was no real hump in game 7. It was pretty wire to wire. At least from when they took their first lead on. But yeah, man, that was the first image I thought of was Chris Bosh in that game 7 scoring 0 points.
I wish more people, especially Heat fans, would appreciate defense.
They should.
What has Pat Riley said for decades? Like, defense is what wins championships, and I get it. We're in a different NBA. Scoring is at a premium. There, you don't give a
Alonzo
about
built
offensive
this franchise
fouls.
with Riley. That's defense.
The league is tailored around all these offensive, stars. But, dude, at the end of the day, Denver and the Heat are both great defensive teams, and that still really matters in this league. And so that's why
great. I would call Denver. A good playoff defense.
I think
they've been a competitive playoff defense. Rohan is in my text telling me, "Oh, Denver's a much better defense than you're giving them credit for." So I guess Rohan and you agree.
I thought they played really the Lakers had a few stretches in that series where they were hitting shots. They still didn't even give them an inch.
I have negative respect for the Lakers.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, they were a very weak Western Conference finalists. But at the end of the day, they have so much length and size. The Heat have shown, through the last few years that they can absolutely handle teams that have length and size, through their own special, especially with Jimmy with just brute force. But the Jimmy AG matchup, I'm super interested, man, because AG's a strong guy. Like Jimmy relies on overpowering defenders more often than not. And AG is, he looks like a big guy. I'm really curious to see if Jimmy is still able to, inflict the same level of physicality that he has been in some of these earlier series.
Last thing, because we got to get to Herro, just want to mention quickly the Gabe Bam pick and roll, which I think is also going to be really important this series. I think you saw how much it mattered against Boston. I think that Gabe is very good at navigating those tighter spaces, and I think that Gabe is a guy that finds those creases to get downhill, a very good pull-up shooter. And I think Jokic is going to struggle with Gabe Vincent. I think Kyle Lowry's another guy that we haven't talked about on offense, but I think picking up the pace against Denver is going to be critical as well. I think you want to run. I know that team likes to play fast, but make them run on defense, make them expend energy. And Kyle is a head up point guard who wants to run. I think the ability to shoot off the catch and off the handoff is going to be huge for both guards. I think the playmaking that they both give, the pick and roll synergy with Bam, the kind of Bam as a lob threat. I think those two guys, I don't think people are talking about them, Brady, as kind of impactful guys this series, but I just think that this is actually a series where I think they can get kind of comfortable on offense.
Yeah, and if you were to ask me who my X factor is in this series right now, I think it's Gabe Vincent.
I agree.
I just think there's the factor of what we saw from Jalen Brunson still in my mind defensively, that they're going to need him to pick up at times and bother Jamal Murray. But even more so, I think offensively, he's going to be really need to be utilized. I just think you mentioned it, the pull-up shooting. I know we're going to get into Tyler next, but we don't know what Tyler is going to look like, or if he what is Tyler going to be. You still need a pull-up shooter guard in this series. You just need him as somebody that's going to be able to run the offense and do that type of stuff. And if Jamal Murray is the one that's guarding Gabe mostly, he's the one that's going to be chasing around those screens. Gabe is going to have comfortable mid-range pull-ups. Like it's going to be comfortable. And the way he was manipulating stuff around the rim in that Boston series, like he was finding just certain gaps that I didn't understand how he was finding them. And if he can do that against Boston, he's going to do it against Denver. He's going to find different gaps in that pick and roll to find just different ways to score around the rim. And then obviously I'm going to come back to with every single player or guard that we talk about.
Yes.
Their pocket passing is going to be crucial in this series because that's what opens up Bam and the rest of the offense. So they're going to need that element. But I'm still just going to continually talk about the fact that they need the pull-up shooting from anybody right now heading into this series, which we've said every series was going to be a problem, and it never ends up being a problem for some reason, which is just hilarious.
Because I know we're running on time here. Chris Haynes reported last night, not fake Ira, which Ira Winderman had to get Tyler on record on his Twitter account to say, I'm not playing tonight, which was one of the funniest moments of the season. I can't, Brady, you know Ira. We all love Ira. I can't imagine Ira walking up to Tyler, explaining what's happening.
Also, did you see how close he had the camera to his face?
I
can see his skin
Tyler's
cells.
eyes.
Like,
they're beautiful. He has very nice eyes. Just very, very pretty guy. But Ira just sticking a phone in his face, and Tyler, I am not playing today. Like,
I want to know what that conversation looked like before.
I want to know so bad. I just imagine Ira, Tyler, you know that there's a fake me that reported that you're not playing. You know, can we get a quick statement?
Oh, Gianni's limited fake Ira
limited
Winderman is pretty solid.
Hey, man, I love Ira. I've always said Ira's one of the hardest working people in this fucking industry. Brady, you know, in a scrum, Ira's James Harden in isolation. Ira's get out of my way.
Sam's box out numbers? Like, I don't know if you've seen those.
Dude, Barry's like the smallest guy on the court that gets every offensive rebound. He will sneak in through the scrum, and it's like, how did Barry get in front of everybody? A master.
I'm the guy that just gets back on defense. I'm just standing in the back.
You're tall though. You have an advantage. You have a tall, projective voice. You know, Barry has to he's a pro, squeeze him. But Tyler Herro, probably maybe is trying to get ready for Game 3, first home game in the series for Miami. Brady, let's just assume that he's going to play some sort of limited role in the series. I think he's important for every reason that we said Gabe Vincent's important, except times 10, because he is such a much better pick and roll shooter off the dribble, a handler, a passer. He's just a very good basketball player who it's ridiculous to say they don't miss Tyler Herro. If you saw them for any stretch of offense where they couldn't score against Boston, you would think, man, if they had Tyler Herro to make a play here. I think he's huge for them. And I actually think that if he comes back with a minutes restriction, it kind of helps because then, you don't have to force him to play too much. You give yourselves a couple minutes of offense and you can play some of your bigger lineups like with Max or whatever.
For sure. I think there was some talk obviously before, specifically around the time when they went up 3-0 about not playing Tyler, even if he was to come back. And I just didn't understand any of that, especially in this point of the playoffs where you need the pull-up shooting that we're talking about. You're getting it from other guys, but who's to say that it's going to just fully continue to this extent? You have a talent that's sitting there that can be utilized. Now, there's certain questions that I have. There's the question about the hand, obviously, of the obvious ones of how it'll look, how the shot will look, how the ball handling will look, like how game speed, like all that type of stuff. That we're not worried about kind of being in the right game shape, because obviously this is a hand injury, so you're not worried about that type of
I
stuff.
heard that you can't
but you have to
run
see how
for a while when you first get the cast because you don't want to. So I actually I think game shape could be a thing too.
it's true, but I think they find alternatives. Like there's the bikes and all that type of stuff that they can still get in shape somehow without running, I guess. But yeah, I guess there's still getting back into a rhythm. But either way, there's that element, and the other element is the defensive side of things, where are they going to be willing to play? Well, they obviously have to be willing to play it, but the two shooters, like the Tyler Duncan lineups, the Tyler Max lineups, those are the things that they stayed away from. We haven't seen a ton of Max Duncan. It is, but I feel like it's less scary than a Boston. So there's a balance, I feel like, because there's not like there's two wings that are hunting for an isolation every play, and you have to just be worried about it every time. This is a team that is based on kind of off-ball actions and a lot of stuff with, Jamal Murray, I guess, can hunt him, but like there's other stuff they could peel in. I feel like I'm not overly worried about that, to be honest. But either way, they need his shooting. And if he's coming back in a game 3, and let's get away from schematics for a second, put Tyler Herro in a game 3, entering from the scorer's table with the crowd going. All I'll say is his first shot's going in. That's all I'll say, because he is a performer to the crowd. Like he's going to be amped up in that way. I don't know. I just feel like he's gonna be needed in that way, and I'm not expecting a ton from him. And I don't think, honestly, it sounds wild to say, I don't think they're asking or need a lot from him. They just need him to play a specific role. They need him to kind of just maybe take away some of Gabe's reps, some of Kyle's reps. Just kind of like it doesn't have to be so high.
If Max is having like a poor shooting night, hey, can you eat 5 of Max's minutes? You know, give him a little bit of rest, give us some variance.
And and I mentioned before, the 2 on the ball stuff that they're going to send to Duncan and Max, like there probably becomes a point in the series where that's not like as effective. Like there's only so much handoffs and 2 on the ball stuff that you can run. You're going to need a guy to create out of that, and Tyler's a guy that can create out of that. So late in the series, after you kind of throw your base stuff in games 1 and 2, when Tyler's not there, you can mix some of this stuff in. So he can open things up. Look at, even we talked about the way that you could throw stuff at Jimmy and Bam in that Boston series, the way that you can kind of just flatten them out. You can't do that when you have a Tyler Herro. So, like, as much as everybody wanted to talk about Tyler Herro in the past and things they threw at him, it opened up guys like Jimmy for easier opportunities. So even if Tyler's not having a major series, he can be effective just by having the gravity that we were talking about before.
Anything on Tyler before we get out of here?
I mean, really the only thing is, I mean, Brady said it great. He absolutely is a contributor. You know, I think the hard thing that will be, on Spo to really iron out is, I think the Heat definitely did find something this postseason. Without Tyler, they've really only had one defensive liability on the court at any time. And sure, maybe there's been a handful of Duncan Max minutes that we've gone through, but for the most part, maximum one weakness. So I would say outside of Duncan and Max, everybody that's playing right now is a solid defender. So if you can slot him in with guys like Gabe or Kyle, and then the trio of Caleb, Jimmy, Bam, I don't think there's a huge downside to giving him a little run and seeing what he's got,
With Highsmith as well, you can play him with Highsmith.
Exactly, and that's my point, is that he can be the offensive facilitator that the team needs, the pull-up shooter that the team will need, especially if they start packing the paint. If Jimmy's getting to the rim and they're starting to overcorrect a little bit, you're going to have to hit mid-range jumpers in order to keep them honest, and so let him get a little run coming off the bench. I mean, I don't know if I would go as far as to start him again. I think the team is in too much of a groove for that, but I think he's absolutely going to warrant minutes, and especially if the Nuggets aren't really expecting it. So much of this at this point is about scouting, about preparation, and being able to throw somebody that they're not expecting, like a Haywood Highsmith out of nowhere in Game 5 and Game 7. That could pay a tangible dividend for this team in what will be most likely a tight series.
Did you guys see that tweet that one guy's like, man, who the fuck is Haywood Highsmith? I'm sick of Heat culture.
My
By the
favorite. Did you see that video of the Celtics fan, interviewing all the Celtics people after the game?
I didn't
And
watch
what was the Caleb Martin comment killed me. He's like, "Who's Caleb Martin? He's killing us."
Brady, what did you have? I saw you were gonna say something.
I was going to mention that. By the way, with the Tyler conversation as well, we were talking about Kevin Love and Zeller before. I don't think you could have the Zeller or Love conversation if Tyler's playing. Like, if he's in the rotation,
Yeah,
Highsmith's your full-on backup 5, and Love and Zeller
I
are
agree.
D&D.
I agree. As we get deeper into the playoffs, it's harder to even sacrifice a
Mhm.
couple minutes. Gentlemen, I am so excited to cover this series, Brady. I'm so happy that you finally came on and talk hoops with you. Truly a pleasure, and it's just, man, watching high stakes basketball where every second, it's a heightened sense of existence. Everything matters to like the nth degree, and it's just so fucking fun. Brady, I want to leave you on a treat. I don't know if you know, but we're celebrating 10 years of Miami Heat Beat this year, and there is a very famous quote from somebody that used to be on Heat Beat that you may recognize. And I think it's a perfect sound to send us off about the Denver Nuggets.
Send me what a Denver Nuggets basketball player is, and let's see if everyone knows what that is compared to what a Miami Heat basketball player is, when everyone knows what that definition is.
It's facts. I mean, what
It's
he
facts.
said it. I can't deny it.
Gianni, what was the original context of that quote?
Leif was talking to a guest, and Leif said, "Look me in my face, dog. Look me in my face and tell me what a Denver Nuggets player is." Because Leif was spouting about culture. Let's hear that one more time.
Send me what a Denver Nuggets basketball player is, and let's see if everyone knows what that is compared to what a Miami Heat basketball player is, when everyone knows what that definition is.
What a legend. 10 years
def-
of Miami Heat Beat.
The
Love you,
definition
Leif.
is champion.
Definition is champion. Everybody, get ready for the NBA Finals. Get ready for the Stanley Cup, the Panwagon, the Panthers. Although that guy on the Panthers said he likes the Celtics, which is a little no-no. But
No, he liked Tatum because he was a childhood friend. Let's not do
oh,
this,
okay,
Gianni.
correction. I didn't know that.
All
that. Okay, well, shout out to the Panthers. Shout out to the Marlins, who I think are also over 500.
They are.
You know, listen, South Florida, the Canes, the Owls. Brady, are you an Owl?
No.
Oh, thank God, because I'm from FIU, so that whole run drove me fucking crazy. I'm like, I hate the Owls. I'm not cheering for them. Fuck them. I'm a Golden Panther for life. Everybody, remember to check out our game day coverage. Pre-game and 30 minutes before every game. Frankie, Coach Lou, and I take you before, preview everything. We've been doing a lot of fun stuff with film on the pregame show, so join us there. And, of course, hangover time. It's farewell season. Hangover time is getting sent off in the NBA Finals. Listen, we need to root for championship Pepas. Brass, Lord knows what he'll plan. And you know that Alpha's going to bring it every single night with Tiff, Bon, Moose, everybody, the whole crew. Everybody, thank you for another great playoff season of coverage. And hopefully we get at least 5 or 6 more of these and a Heat championship. Brady, again, thank you so much. You have anything you want to plug on your way out? Anything you've written? Any podcasts that you have coming out for 5 reasons?
I mean, Brady Hawk 305 on Twitter, 5 on the floor. I think we're about to record right after this, so we'll have a new 5 on the floor out. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Appreciate you having me on.
Shout out to you. Shout out to Ethan, who I know is going to Denver right now. We'll talk to you guys on tomorrow. We're having TJ McBride on to preview the Denver Nuggets offense and Miami's defense against them. So we'll see you tomorrow.